Hello, this is Sierra, and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another video inside of Hermitcraft using Clockwork. We are still in Impulse's perspective. This is story 8. We are on episode 32, chapter 5. Yeah, as you can probably tell from the title of this video, I don't know how long chapter 5 will be. I don't know how long chapter 6 will be. I don't know how long other chapters will be. But we'll see how it goes. Chapter 5. Impulse opened his eyes once again in a dimly lit room, his mind a haze as he felt some sort of hum of something cold on his forehead. He was lying on the floor as he struggled to sit up, realizing moments later that he was chained to the floor by his wrists and ankles, unable to escape as he surveyed what he could from the room. It was basically empty. He could see cobwebs hanging on the ceiling and the corners of the room. There were only a few torches in the area. Even then, there wasn't much. Most of the light came from the iron door that led to the hallway. There didn't even seem to be a window either, which meant he was either underground or deep inside one of the sort of holding cell. Where was he even? He was close. How close was he to his friends? Was he even in the same world anymore? He couldn't remember what had happened after being ambushed by Mistress men. He wasn't even sure what his escort had been doing, or if he was even helping. Had he done anything, or had this been intentional? He didn't know, but he hoped Green was safe. He'd seen him gliding away, but that had been it. He didn't know if the men had gone to fetch him or not, or if they succeeded. He was saved from the endless questions as he heard footsteps in the hall, as a familiar humming noise filled his mind, as dread filled him. How had they managed to get another one of these headbands on him? Was this the same prototype, or was it different? Excuse me. Was RJ coming back to see him, or was it someone else? He wasn't sure if he wanted to know. He struggled against his restraints as he tried to think of something he could do, but nothing did. The vibrating in his head was loud and distracting. It had been on purpose. Sure enough, a moment later, the iron door unlocked as someone walked inside with one of the soldiers that had to have ambushed him, Green. The man was tall, was well-structured, with a black leather jacket. His features didn't show up too well in the dim lighting as he approached the YouTuber. "Well, it's finally good to meet you, the man said with a chuckle as he knelt down so he was closer to the YouTuber's level. "My brother told me all about how you so nearly escaped death not too long ago. Wasn't that right?" "Yeah, and I'd do it again," Impulse replied simply. The man laughed. "Unfortunately for you, you won't be so successful." "I'm sure your supposed protector will make sure of that," the man said with a sneer, his teeth glinting ever so slightly in the torchlight. "Wait, what?" Impulse asked, puzzled. "He promised to help us capture you and Green in exchange for something important to him." The man smiled coldly. "Well, you only got half of the deal, now didn't you?" Impulse snapped, as the headband hummed even louder. "Oh, I would be so quick to assume, YouTuber," the man mused. "Sent my men to go after him, as well as we speak. There's nothing you or your allies could do to stop us from trying." Impulse looked away from the man, not wanting the man to see his expression of dread. The thought of the men chasing his friend down was terrifying. Surely he wouldn't be alone to fend for himself, though. If he'd managed to get to Gem and Pearl's base, he should be fine. He had to be. He had to hope so. The man couldn't possibly know where Green had gone. "I'd suggest you look at me when I'm talking to you, YouTuber," the man said matter-of-factly, as his pulse felt a sharp pain from everywhere. He gasped, attempting to pull himself out of the restraints before realizing the pain wasn't coming from there. He looked up at the man as the pain subsided. "Looks to me that this technology is working as expected." "Not another one of your guinea pigs again, am I?" Impulse asked bitterly. "Oh, I've tried this before, no worries. Archie's done a lot of good to ensure that I get the best gadgets for the job. Think you'll really enjoy this one. Yes, at least, I will," man said with a smile. "Now, how should we start this?" "I'm not sure what you mean," the YouTuber admitted nervously. "Why do you need both of us?" "I didn't," the man chuckled, "but I did want to see your friend again after the last time we spoke. I want to know how he survived that explosion." "How do you know that?" Impulse snapped. "I have my ways, YouTuber. Sure, it'd be pretty clear how I did it, the man said with his humming increased as Impulse closed his eyes, not sure whether to be expecting pain, or for the man to try to get him to slip up again. If you think you're gonna get me to tell you, I can't, Impulse said matter-of-factly. I was too focused on trying not to die than what's going on. I'll see, the man said dully. Such a shame. To be fair, no one knew who was in there until Pete said something, Impulse admitted. Ah, Miss Mouth. You forget, I already knew that. Didn't have any names. Oh. Impulse sighed, opening his eyes as he looked up at the man, looking over him. Don't worry about it. We all had your little slip-ups. The man laughed. If you would like to tell me about that friend of yours, though. No? Paul said firmly. You should. No. You should know I don't take that answer very kindly, the man said darkly. The pain returned and he recruited his teeth, wanting so badly to get the little gadget off him. He knew he couldn't, though. Is there anything you can tell me about your fellow hermits? The sour taste filled the YouTuber's mouth. He heard the man use the term. Think about that how crisp and collected he was at saying it made him feel uneasy. The man knew what he was doing. Biding time. For what, though? To prolong its torment? Impulse shook his head, afraid the soldier would try to get the machine to try to make him say something that he didn't want to. He could feel the pain building, seeming to pull from every part of his body. His brain screamed in agony. He could hear faint shouts and cries deep in his mind as he struggled to focus, trying to hold on to anything that might help him get out of this, to get through the torment. Nothing seemed to work. You're not making this easy for me, are you? The man chuckled. Never, Impulse whispered, as he gasped in pain, clenching his fists as he felt had been hum even louder. What are you doing to me? Nothing really. Just tricking your brain and believing that you're in pain, the man chuckled. Nothing's happening to you. But it could very well happen if you don't cooperate. What do you mean? Impulse asked wearily. I can cause a pretty painful shock if I wanted to, the man said. It would not be pleasant. Jibber swallowed and nodded. You know I won't tell you. Not willingly, the man said with a smile. Not ever, Impulse corrected. Oh, I will get you to talk. My brother got you to do it before, the man chuckled again. You won't get me to talk, Mr. A, so you might as well forget it, Impulse replied. What if your little friend's life was on the line? Mr. A asked as he raised an eyebrow. I have a lot of friends, Impulse said nervously. He wasn't thinking where this was going. As do I, the man said coolly. And I have no issue with sending one of to severely make things difficult for everyone. Perhaps even having permanent effects. You won't get close to any of my friends, Impulse said confidently. Aha, that doesn't necessarily stop me from trying, the man sneered. Remember, you could spare your friend's life if you let me in on some information. Impulse hesitated for a moment before slowly shaking his head. He felt the pain pierce through him once again. He screamed, unable to stop it from erupting from his lips as he heard himself faintly pleading to stop. Give him a few minutes of this, Mr. A's faint voice said casually. The pain erupted even more through him. Perhaps he'll be more willing to talk then. Yes, sir, the soldier replied as Impulse watched him increase his dial. Heard another scream as his whole world turned into a hazy daze, painful, fury, confusing daze as he struggled to get away, struggled to do anything. He felt trapped and alone. His enemies were threatening his friends. He couldn't let this happen. He couldn't let them win like this. What more could he do now? He felt himself drifting, unsure of where he was, who he was, or what was going on. Chapter 6. Everything seemed to be on fire. All I could hear was screaming. He couldn't see anything. The pain was unbearable. He wanted to get out, wanted to go anywhere, someplace safe. He knew he shouldn't have gone back with that escort. It had been so obvious that he shouldn't be trusted. Why had he listened to him? Why hadn't he fought a little harder to stay at the girls' bases where it was safer? Why hadn't he been more careful as to where his enemies were to make sure he didn't get captured? None of this made sense. The strange feeling slowly began to fade as everything began to come back to focus as he blinked, sweating, shaking. He felt tears slipping down his face. Had this all really been in his head? He could see Mr. A watching him expectantly, the soldier waiting at the ready, Both of their expressions didn't seem at all fazed by the fact they had endured him being tortured by his own mind for however long it had been. Are you willing to make a decision, then? Mr. A asked him bluntly. Told you, Impulse said as he breathed through pained breath. I won't tell you. You truly don't understand the consequences, do you? Mr. A asked firmly. If you choose not to tell me what I want to know, I will make sure your friends suffer far worse than what you've already been through. Trust me, I'm more than capable of doing that. Paul shook his head. Trust in the cause to make sure you won't do that. Well, that's interesting. Because your own escort proved that you can't trust the cause, the man mused. They'll be ready to turn their backs on you, your kind, the moment they have a chance. You're wrong, Impulse said simply. Xavier risked his life to protect me, and paid for it. Yes, but it's rare to find such dedicated people. The man smiled. Besides, I'm sure in due time he too would have left you in the dust. You're lying, the hero demanded. You can't prove it, now can you? The man asked. Nor can you disprove it either. Yes, there are many stories, but there are still countless others of betrayal. No one can save you. Not your friends. Not the cause. No one. Impulse shook his head slowly. Stop trying to get into my head. It's not going to work. I already in your head, you gibber. Mr. A pondered. From all the stories heard of me. Aren't you afraid? No, the YouTuber replied boldly. He winced as the sharp pain erupted again, and he tried to ignore it. There was no point fighting this anymore, was there? No matter what he did, the man would keep at it until he finally broke him. Not afraid of you. Even if I threaten your friends' lives, the man pressed. You underestimate us, Impulse replied plainly. No, you underestimate me? You know nothing of the horrors and torment I could cause, the man said darkly. The pain that I forced your kind to endure, only to get to my end goal. That is something your friend Green knows very well. Leave him alone, all of them, Impulse said simply. Good, if you tell me about them, he offered. So you can just do it anyway? No, I don't think so, Impulse said defiantly as he lifted his chin. You're very stubborn, aren't you? Mr. A said. I'm sure my men will come back soon with results. We'll see whether or not you're so set on your standards when I see you again later today. You won't get away with this. My friends will find me, Impulse replied. He got to his feet. Did they do? Consequences will be severe. Mr. A chuckled. You can't remove that headband without deactivating it first. And the only way you can is if you take it from me. So either you risk hurting yourself, or I do it for you. So don't even think about it. It's not my choice, Impulse said matter-of-factly. May not be, but you still have it either way, regardless if you survive or not. I will get my way, the man replied as he walked to the door and left the room as the soldier followed behind, closing and locking it behind him as their footsteps faded away, as the humming slowed and the pain slowly faded away. It didn't take him long before he fell asleep on the cold cobblestone floor, staring at the plain wall, sure of what he was meant to do next. His eyes snapped open as he was startled awake by a noise. He looked up at the room around him, confused as to where he was as he heard what sounded like shouts of alarm and footsteps running down the hallways. He tried to figure out what was going on. Slowly came back to him as he put a hand on the headband he'd been given when he'd first arrived here. He wanted so badly to take it off, but he wasn't sure he was willing to risk Mr. A's threat of it potentially hurting him. He knew the man was very capable of doing something like that. He wondered if he should say something, if it was possible that the shouting and commotion was because a rescue party had finally arrived. He wasn't sure if he should risk it, in case it was another trap. He silently eyed the door as he heard footsteps coming closer, louder as he heard commotion down the hall. He couldn't tell what was happening. The shadow passed in front of the door. The figure's shadow grazed the room. He could see a glimpse of camouflage as hope filled him. There was a click as the door opened, as a young man, around his late teens to early 20s, stepped into the room, his turquoise eyes surveying the room until he met eyes with the YouTuber, before rushing over to his direction. Are you okay? You aren't hurt? The man asked quickly, unclasping the chains that had held him to the floor as Impulse managed to step. Who are you? The YouTuber asked in confusion and uncertainty. I'm Blake. Liam sent me here to help you. The man replied with a smile. Guess I'm your official protector now? I mean, you're currently in the process of saving my life, YouTuber admitted before pointing at pen. Do you think you could take this off without setting it off? It's live? Blake frowned. Very much live. And potentially deadly, Impulse admitted. Mr. A seems to think so anyway. Well, usually these sorts of things don't always go to plan for him. Let me see. Blake chuckled as he leaned in and examined the machine before pulling something out of his pocket. A box with a long cord on the end, about 1 meter long. As he put the box on the floor and placed the card by the clasp, hooking it in as the clasp clicked, as the YouTuber gasped, watching as the machine fell harmlessly to the floor, crackling a bit before dying down. Blake smiled in satisfaction. Thought as much. I guess so, Pulse admitted as Blake stood up, offering a hand as the YouTuber took it, glancing over at the door wearily. How am I going to get out of here? The backup crew is causing quite a distraction, Blake replied. Should buy us some time. Pulse nodded as a knot formed in his stomach. Where's Korean? He's at Gem's Pearls last time I checked. The man replied with a frown. Why? Mr. A sent some guys to look for him, and I don't want them to find him, Pulse admitted. The man has something pretty awful planned for him. Did he say what? Blake asked. He shook his head. No, of course he didn't. Right, we can check in as soon as we get out of here. Sounds good? Blake offered. Sounds good to me. Pulse said as he, with a relieved smile, as the two of them walked out of the cell and down the hall. Blake staying somewhat close as he surveyed the area. Most of the rooms were empty as they weaved around the hall till they found the entrance. Sure enough, they arrived at the entrance with relative ease. They both stopped. Blake checked the surroundings. Looks clear to make a run for it. Impulse nodded his head as they ran to the tree line. What a tree line. Impulse glancing back as he noticed a few of the guards at a distance. But he didn't seem to have spotted them as they disappeared through the trees. He could feel his heart hammering in his chest as they ran through the woods, glancing back every once in a while to make sure no one was following them. Once they were certain that it was safe, Blake gestured to slow down as Impulse changed his run into a fast walk. Well, that was easy enough, Blake admitted. He didn't seem too convinced by this statement. Yeah, Impulse replied. I have a bad feeling a lot of the brute force wasn't spent on keeping me there, especially when I wasn't giving Mr. A what he wanted. Oh, fuck you! A scream echoed through the trees as his blood ran cold. He recognized that scream as he slowly turned to look at Blake. The escort nodded, without a word, as they both began to run towards where they'd heard the scream, Impulse hoping deep down that they weren't too late. Unfortunately, this is where we're going to end the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I will see you in the next one, whenever that may be. Goodbye.